Hi there, and welcome back to the Church Musician's Assistant. My name is Hannah Cruz. If you are already a church musician, then you're going to relate to this video a lot. But if you are an aspiring church musician looking to get more training or go get a degree of some sort, then this video is going to be possibly eye-opening and helpful for you. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 20 skills that I've had to develop somehow in my church music career so far that I didn't necessarily learn when I went to university. Now, I feel extremely fortunate to have gotten degrees, higher education degrees, and those experiences were invaluable in my life. They have made me the person I am today and given me incredible tools, and many of my professors and peers still influence me and push me to be the best church musician I can be. But there's simply some things that, currently at least, most of us can't learn at university. Maybe that's because they are best learned by experiencing them in the real world, the real job. But I think some of these skills could be taught in some way at university level and just aren't, unfortunately. So this video is going to serve to cover some of those skills that we all need in our toolbox, but necessarily can't acquire with a typical degree. I'm not going to try to give like answers or resources or solutions to all of them, but rather just state the skills, and maybe in the future we'll come back and make videos more in depth on each one of them. So let me know in the comments if that's something that you're interested in. Number one, the first skill that you probably won't learn when you go to get a degree is how to interpret scripture. And not just how to interpret scripture, but how to proclaim it and to understand and proclaim why church music is important and why church music can change lives and spiritually influence our Christian communities. This is not something that we just learn about in school, unless possibly you're getting a seminary degree, but even then, it's not guaranteed that you'll talk about why church music is spiritually and scripturally relevant. So this is something that many of us learn from our peers or from years of talking with pastors and going to conventions and all sorts of things. But I hope that there will be a more formal way for church musicians to get that knowledge and to become passionate about why church music is important. Not just because it's fun or it brings community together, which those things are true, but because church music is scripturally important and relevant. So I do have some videos out about this, which I will link in the info box below if you want to go check those out, and they sort of delve into this area of scripture and music. Number two, how to craft a liturgy. Now, not every musician will necessarily be in charge of crafting liturgy, but I hope that all church musicians get the opportunity to work with their pastors in developing that worship service and finding ways for music to impact the worshipers on the most profound level. So the way the worship service flows, the pieces of music that are chosen and in what order they are put, all of those things impact how the worshiper experiences that time together. It influences, what you sing or what you hear before something influences your experience of the thing that happens right after that, if that makes sense. And as a church musician and somebody who is putting together music for a worship service, I think we ought to understand how our music impacts those in our congregation in a ritualistic sort of way. Number three, this one is one of the hardest things for me. How to handle the church budget, how to, predict expenditures, how to keep up with your expenses, how to communicate with members in the church about your financial needs, and comforting those who have given money and didn't get what they wanted, and trying to be kind of on the ball financially at all times. This is a skill that most church musicians don't get any training in. They might naturally be good at it or not good at it, but a business class, at least one business class at university, would certainly help, but still doesn't relate specifically to church finances. Number 4 sort of relates to staying on the ball, and that's being organized and planning way ahead. Some church musicians plan way ahead, and everything is structured, for the whole year basically. And then some church musicians do things more on the fly, and that's okay too. It depends on your service and your congregation and your context and all of that. But all church musicians have to keep track of their volunteer singers, their paid musicians, keep track of the music library, and make sure all of the events and music is ready to go, and it's in the bulletin, and it's sent to the right people. So being organized is important. Number 5, this one is difficult, but knowing how to ask for fair pay from your church, when especially when some members or even staff members on the team may have a conception that what you do as a church musician is charity. It's, a service thing, which it is a service, but for many of us, if we're trying to be full-time church musicians, or we're just trying to make church music an integral part of our life, we need that part of our life to provide for us somewhat, at least financially. So knowing how to talk to people about why your job matters and why you are valuable as a person, as a staff, a team member, and what you're going to do for the ministry of the church. Talking about these things and negotiating your pay is essential, and we shouldn't be afraid to do that. We shouldn't be afraid to ask for what we deserve. So number 6 is understanding how to come up with other work. If you don't have a full-time church music job, which many of us don't, then either acquiring other degrees that allow you to work in a different career path, or being entrepreneurial and taking initiative to create your own business, coming up with side hustles in music, whatever it takes to fund your church music habit. Number 7, know how to play hymns and congregational songs in a way that supports and encourages group participation. So this goes beyond just reading the page of music. It goes beyond knowing how to play your instrument well, or even understanding good accompanist strategies. Accompanying one soloist is totally different than leading a congregation of amateur singers. So doing that in a way that not only gets them to sing, but gets them excited to sing is it's a real talent of the organist or the keyboardist or the guitarist. And there are so many facets to understand and to practice. Now, I used to have a detailed, fairly rigorous hymn playing course out on my website, the Church Musician's Assistant. I have taken it down because it was just a really big course, and I'm experimenting with smaller courses. But if you would be interested in something like that again, please comment, because that'll help me know what the audience is looking for, and it will help me come up with new courses to create. So let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in a full creative hymn playing course. Number 8, instrument maintenance. So every church musician has to deal with whatever instruments are available in their sanctuary and in their church, whether that be a pipe organ, an acoustic piano, guitars, or even electronic instruments. So all of those things need to be maintained on a regular basis. And if you've been doing church music long enough, I'm sure you've encountered a crisis somehow on Sunday morning. Either a string has broken, or a pipe has gone out of tune, or there's a cipher, if you've got an actual pipe organ tracker. So all these little issues have to be handled, and it is really helpful as a church musician to have just a little bit of knowledge about how to fix these instruments and what to do in the event of a crisis. Number 9, and now this is a modern skill that only in the last couple of decades church musicians have had to acquire. This skill is knowing how to use sound gear and recording gear, even possibly video and lighting gear if your job overlaps into that territory. But especially during the pandemic, all of us had to learn how to use microphones, amps, maybe in-ears, and even editing software. So these skills are so useful now in the modern time, and I think could help us all expand our church jobs and help our churches in other ways that aren't necessarily music related. The more we know about technology, the more we can help our churches move forward. Number 10, conduct the choir or your musicians from the keyboard. Lots of church musicians have conducting experience if they got a music degree of some sort, and some of them even have conducting degrees. And that's fantastic, except if you end up becoming the accompanist and music director, which many of us have, and then you have to figure out how to conduct and somehow lead and rehearse from the keyboard, do it all at once. Now, when I was in college, I specifically asked for a course in this area. I was like, you know what, I'm probably going to be playing the organ or piano and leading the choir, so can I get more experience doing that? And there literally was no course and no teacher who would help me with that. And maybe that's just my experience. Others may have had a different experience, but this is totally a skill that church musicians need some training in. I think it would be very helpful, so that we don't just fall into these jobs and have to figure out how to do it in the midst of the job. Number 11, church musicians have to be really good at diplomacy, right? So we have to know how to coach amateur musicians, especially adults, people who are our own age or even, older than us. We have to know how to coach them in a supportive way that gives them ownership over the music they are presenting, but also in a way where we're teaching them, we're instructing them on how to be better than they currently are. So there's always this fine line of like respecting them and giving them power, but also taking them down a notch and saying, okay, but now let's improve on this and this and this way. So that is definitely a diplomatic skill that church musicians must know. Number 12, know how to improvise. Now you're probably thinking that I mean knowing how to invent music on the keyboard or guitar, wherever you're at. And that is definitely one improvisational tool that we need. But also, I mean more broadly, how to improvise a decision, and so in the last minute, if something goes awry, if somebody doesn't show up, if the power goes out, it just happened to me before. So many things can occur on Sunday morning that force you to make these last minute creative decisions about who's going to do what and how are we going to fix this problem. And knowing or being able to make these decisions is a skill many of us don't learn until we've been doing the job for many years. Number 13, we church musicians perform lots of styles, musical styles. So we have to become well versed in all of these styles and know how to perform them successfully. That includes not just classical repertoire, but popular contemporary repertoire, and gospel and global folk music and beyond. So all of these styles we must learn the ins and outs of and learn how to present them tastefully and enjoyably. And many times we don't learn anything about those styles in school. We just have to go out and figure it out for ourselves. Number 14. Now, unless you're a composition major, then most of us don't learn how to arrange music. Arranging music, oh my gosh, we all should know how to do this on a basic level, because our ensembles currently flex, right? Sometimes we have 2 singers, sometimes we have 20 singers. Okay, maybe it doesn't fluctuate that much, but you know what I mean. You never know who's going to come. Even if you plan and you plan, things will happen, people won't show up, or you'll have a strange little ensemble of instrumentalists turn up, an oboist, a guitarist, a bongo player. How to put these sounds together in a way that is going to enrich the worship service for everyone and make each of those musicians feel loved and appreciated. Number 15, working with little kids and youth. I am not a natural with little kids. It's just not my personality. Some people are great with little kids. They're energetic and they love to play, and that's just not me. So for me, this has been a challenging one, and I think an education degree could really help with that. And taking education classes, music education classes, could be a real benefit in that area. But it's just something church musicians end up doing, is working with kids and youth, and each of those age ranges require different skills and a different way of communicating. Number 16 has to do with playing handbells. Well, I doubt any of us learned how to play or direct handbells at a university. Perhaps we learned how to do it at a church music conference, but more likely we learn how to do it by just getting the chimes out, going, oh, that's how it works, and then you look at the symbols on the music and you look up what they mean and go from there. Now, wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to figure it out ourselves? I would love to see more handbell playing and directing classes available to us. Number 17, how do we balance our lives in the church as both a leader, spiritual leader of the congregation, and also an active member? So we're always towing this weird line of making executive decisions and guiding those around us in the church, but then we also want to be a participant in worship and become friends with the congregants, and maybe even get involved in mission work that has nothing to do with music. And so being a member and a colleague, but also a leader, is tricky sometimes. And I think it's something each of us has to consider deeply at our unique church positions. And a little bit of training in how to deal with people in that way would be awfully helpful, I think. That leads me to the next point, number 18, which is handling relationships, especially with your pastors and your other staff members. Many times conflicts arise, and that's natural. We have disagreements, but sometimes those conflicts turn nasty, as unfortunately many of us know. And sadly, some of these situations have turned into church musicians getting fired for unfair reasons, and yeah, just a lot of nastiness going around. And so I think understanding a little bit of psychology and anthropology and knowing how to communicate with each other in a healthy way is totally important. Possibly the most important thing, other than just being able to play music in the first place. Number 19, finding spiritual fulfillment as a church musician amidst all the anxiety of the job and probably burnout at some point. Sometimes we feel really spiritually fulfilled because of the work we're doing in our job, but then sometimes, you know, we get burned out, or we have these relationships that turn sour in the church, and it makes us resent our work. And so on an individual level, we have to figure out ways of you know, nourishing our spirits outside of that work. I made a video about this with some tips and suggestions if you want to check that out, and I'll put it in the info box. Last but not least, number 20. This skill is knowing how to reach out to other people for resources and backup. Oftentimes as church musicians, I think we feel like we ought to know everything. We ought to have solutions and answers and resources for our churches without having to reach out to other people. And that's just not true, because as hopefully you see now after going through these 20 skills that these skills are so disparate. But the church musician is one of the most well-rounded people ever, probably, because they have to be an expert in 1,000 different things. And it's just not possible to be an expert in 1,000 different things. We have to reach out to our wider community and the experts in our community. And so it would be great, though, if when we got our degrees at these fancy universities, they could at least point us in the direction of where to look, like who to ask for these resources, where are these resources if you need assistance. So sometimes it's a matter of us feeling ashamed to ask, but then probably more often it's an issue of us not knowing where to look for answers. So the church musician's assistant, though I cannot provide answers for everything, that is the biggest reason why I started this business, is to start providing practical resources for our community and covering some of these skills that you won't learn at university and that take time to learn by experience. So I hope that videos like this and the other ones that I put out at the Church Musician's Assistant help you guys in that way. And if there are ever topics that you would like to know more about and you just don't know where to look, then please either comment in under one of my videos, or you can email me at thechurchmusiciansassistant@gmail.com. I can't necessarily say that I will have the answers or be able to create a video in a timely manner about it, but if I feel secure in my knowledge of that topic, then I will strive to create a helpful video for you guys. So, are there any other skills that you have had to develop in your church music career that you felt perhaps you weren't amply prepared for? Were there any skills that you wish you had had a class in or some sort of experience in early on? If so, please comment below. I'm really fascinated to hear about each of your experiences. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you can continue to get our videos when they come out, and give this video a thumbs up. Blessings in your church music work, and I will see you next time.